Hello, my friends. In today's video, we are going to answer the question, what is road mapping and why does my book need it? Now, you may never have heard that term before. That's okay. I'm going to explain it to you, but if you've heard it, you may be thinking this. What is road mapping and why do I need it? And I don't necessarily get this question word for word, but I get a lot of questions that fall under this. And so then I explain the road mapping concept, and hopefully it's clear after that. So road mapping is a way to help your readers keep track of time and place. It's a way for your readers to navigate your book. And I really want you to think of your story as it's laid out on a map. And you need to provide your readers with the GPS coordinates, okay? You are like the little GPS lady saying, turn right, turn left, flip a U-turn. You're the lady, okay? You have to tell your readers where to go, where they are, what to expect. This isn't about revealing all of the secret roads that you're going to take them down or anything. This is just about helping them feel like they're not lost. It is the worst feeling for a reader to be thinking like, I'm so confused here. What just happened? Where am I? What day is it? What time is it? What year is it? Who's even talking? You do not want your readers to have any of those questions unless for some reason you're writing like a mystery or something, right? Like we want them to have a lot of questions in a mystery, but questions that you will mindfully place as questions and then answer accordingly. In your memoir, I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's not like a mystery thriller, and you are maybe going to have a few questions that remain unanswered for a little while, but you still want them to know where they are on the timeline and where they are in location, right? Like I'm at my house, I'm at the school, I'm at, the neighbor's house. We traveled to New York, we went to Peru. Right? You want them to know where geographically you are. So think of your story as a road map, as a big map. And let's say your story happens in one town, your hometown, and you don't travel outside of your town. That's what the map will include, right? And then you just have little pins on the map. This is where we are, and here's how you're going to do this. Road mapping can happen in a few different ways. Like I said, geographically, that's important, but also timeline is important. So think dates, ages, grades. I like ages the best because number one, it's universal. Everyone has an age. And grades, I don't know if grades shift from country to country, like we might call it primary or elementary. We don't, middle school, what does that even mean? Like, how old are you? We don't want to have to think about that as readers. How old are you in seventh grade? Do you remember? 13, 14? I don't know. I'd have to do some math, right? Like, what year was I in seventh grade minus my age? No, I don't want to stop a story to do math. I just want you to tell me I was 16 or I was 3 years older, right? I like ages because it's universal and simple. Dates are okay, but we're not always going to remember dates. We're not going to remember like, oh, that's right. Last chapter, he said he was, in 1998, and now it's, well, what is it? We're not, again, we're going to have to do the math. We're going to have to remember things. Remembering things is okay as long as it's easy to recall. And with dates, we don't always have a sense of what that feels like. But with ages, we can automatically go back to when we were 16. We can go back to when we were 25. We can go back to when we were 7. We know what that feels like because we've been exactly there. We've been in those particular shoes as ourselves. So we then have something to compare it to. Oh, she's talking about when she was 16. I remember when I was 16, I was doing the same stuff, whatever. So I would encourage you to use ages more than grades or dates, but you can mix it up and you don't have to be very obvious about this. In the next scene, I am 17. You don't have to be obvious about it, but use clear language to show the passage of time. So, and again, think of these as street signs. Okay, oh, we just passed 17 years old. Oh, over there's 21. I got it. They're just keeping track of things. They're just feeling they are on the same page with you, literally, and pun intended, okay? So use some clear language to show the passing of time. This can be something like after we moved in, moved to Albuquerque in September, like maybe you were just talking about something that happened in July, right? So they know it was just a couple months later. Something like a year later, or as a 16-year-old, I didn't realize that this is the way men acted or whatever, right? Like, before my mom died my senior year, we kind of know around what age people are in their senior year. So that one's pretty obvious. We don't have to do any math there. And we understand, like, you're pretty young when your mom passes there. Give us those little clues. A year later, 4 months later, the next summer, we have to know where we're going and how much time has passed between this section and that section, this chapter and that chapter, whether you're bringing us back in time, like if you have flashbacks, or you're just giving us some backstory. 10 years earlier, I found myself fill in the blank, out in the woods, whatever. 10 years later, right? Give us all of that. We just need to know. And again, it doesn't have to be obvious. You can do this in very creative ways. You can slip in little 2, 3, 4 words, little phrases that don't stop the reader and go like, okay, she's like giving me too much, or that was just unnecessary. I don't need to know it was exactly at 4:07 p.m. You don't have to go off the deep end here unless 4:07 p.m. is an absolutely vital detail to your story. We probably don't need to know what time of day it was that these things happened. Afternoon, evening, whatever. You can give us those general categories if necessary, if you feel that's helpful. So the ultimate goal here is to make sure that your readers don't feel lost. We don't want them wandering around in the woods of your story. We really don't. We want them to feel like they're enjoying this flow. You're just taking them on a guided tour. They're like on this little tour bus of, Danielle's life. Okay, over there is when, when I got pregnant, and over there is when my first son was born, and over there, right? You're just telling them this is where this is where that is, in a fun, engaging, story-like way. And especially when you have flashbacks and backstory, you need to make sure that you're helping us understand the time and place situation. Sometimes you indicate that it's a flashback or a backstory with a little section break, a little section break symbol. But you're still going to tell us kind of where you flashback to at some point. We're going to need to understand that this is a flashback to some time in the past. Or with backstory, you're typically, when I was a child, you're telling us kind of like earlier in your life. We know that you're filling in the gap of something. So we expect to get some time markers there. Something else you can consider that I don't love, but I don't necessarily want to discourage you from exploring is headers, using some of this information in headers. I frequently get memoirs for development that are like travel memoirs, and they want, they journaled, right, throughout their travels, and that's perfect. But the headings are kind of like day 10, day 9, whatever, right? They're kind of like marking the passage of time in their headings. That's perfectly fine. But just remember, like, readers aren't probably going to keep all of that in their heads. And unless you are, how do I say this, like sequentially just like helping us go day by day by day in an engaging way, it might not work. For example, if, on your journey, day 5 through day 10 was just like super boring and nothing happened and you really don't have anything to share, well, what are you going to tell us about that? You might have a heading that says day 4 and then another one that says day 11. And we're going to go, well, what happened for 5 through 10? And so you might need to just fill that gap in for us. We will come to expect that you're giving us a snippet of each day, right? But if you skip a whole week, we're going to go, well, what happened there? So then maybe you want to fill in the gaps. And I don't know, I'm not convinced that readers like read all the headings and remember what they say. I'm not convinced. But if it's in the story, they're going to read it. They're going to read like, the next August or whatever, the next week, following my mother's death, we moved to Albuquerque, whatever. So that is what road mapping is. Think of your story as it's laid out on a map and you're just helping the readers feel like they know where they're going. Like they know where you're taking them, like you're on a guided tour and you're helping them navigate the waters of your life, the waters of your story. And it's just, again, it's just a tool to keep the readers happy with your book and not feeling lost. Have you ever read a book where you're like, what just happened? You don't, that's not a good feeling to have. That's not a good feeling for readers. They don't enjoy that. We don't like feeling lost and we don't like feeling confused. So it's typically one of my main jobs in a developmental edit is to make sure there is no confusion. There is no issues with time mapping, road mapping, time stamping, whatever you want to call it. And those are the things I usually point out. So I have a very keen eye for this. And most writers do this pretty well, but it is very easy to get lost in your own story because you're not lost. You lived it. So it's very easy to just like jump in and keep going and going and going. And all of a sudden we're like, where the heck did you take us? We feel like we had a blindfold on. So that is what that one is. And I will be back in another video to give you some more insights. And I hope I will see you there.